Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Lieboff, and joining me for this episode is BJ Cunningham. Anthony is off this week, but BJ and I will have you covered. We'll go through all 10 matches coming up in the Premier League this weekend. BJ will run through the Bundesliga, Serie A, LaLiga, Ligue. We'll give out a Underdog Parlay, and then our best bets for the upcoming Premier League slate. But before we get to that, just a reminder that Wondergoal is presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anybody else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. If you have a gambling problem or you know someone who does and needs help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. Okay, BJ, we'll start with the headliner for this weekend, which is a Sunday kickoff between Manchester City and Manchester United, the Manchester Derby. City is laying minus 350 here, a prohibitive favorite coming off of a crazy win over in the FA Cup on Tuesday over Luton Town, in which Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland linked up for 4 goals. United 9-1. The draw here is plus 475. This has got to be tough for you. Like it seems like this price is outrageous. It feels outrageous when you look at the two teams and all that, but you would still rather bet Manchester City at this kind of price than Man United, huh?
Yeah. It has more to do with who is actually available for Manchester United, because if they had a full strength squad, I would probably be sitting here and saying like, whoa, this price is kind of crazy, probably passing. Rarely, maybe, I've made like one bet on United over the last 2 years, but I just don't know what they're going to do out of possession or how they can actually stop City. So as of right now, we're recording this before they play Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup. Højlund's out, Lisandro Martinez is out, Luke Shaw is out, Harry Maguire is out for that match, and also Rafael Varane and Bruno Fernandes are also questionable to play in the FA Cup. So who knows if those guys are actually going to play in the weekend. But in either case, it's going to be a second choice back line for Manchester United trying to defend City. And what we've seen from United, especially in these big type of games, because we haven't seen them play a big opponent. They've been facing a lot of teams in the bottom half of the table and going on a run against them. But, this kind of takes me back to the match against Liverpool when they played them at Anfield. Drew them 0-0, gave up 32 shots or something like that. Yeah. Got it to 0-0. In that match, they didn't even try to press Liverpool. They just kind of sat deep and they just said, hey, this is all we can do. There's really not much else that we can't press them, because if we do, we're going to leave our back line exposed. So that is really the only scenario that I think out of possession that they can do in this match, and just hope Onana stands on his head. Even in the previous match, City won that 3-0. City created over 4 expected goals, and Onana actually stood on his head for pretty much the entire match to keep them actually in it and give them a chance. So, you see obviously the difference that Kevin De Bruyne makes when he comes back in the lineup for City. Against Bournemouth, they struggled for chance creation because they were trying to dominate the middle of the pitch. They started Kovacic and Matheus Nunes as the 2 advanced midfielders in a 4-1-4-1. You may see something like that again with De Bruyne in the lineup. He obviously, from chance creation, he's the best one in the Premier League. So I don't see a scenario how United keeps City out here. And given the fact that Højlund's out as well, who is their best transition threat, and the fact that even Martial is out as well, they don't really have a true striker. So they're either going to have to start Rashford up top where he's uncomfortable, Garnacho, something like that. But in either case, it's just a really bad scenario here for United. So I don't really like laying it with City. I don't really do that often, but in this case, given how bad United also have been against the Big Six away from home, last 9 matches, minus 9.5 expected goal differential, only 3 points. So I'm taking City minus 1.5. I'm just laying it. And I feel even if they don't cover, I feel like we're going to walk away from this match being like either, man, Onana stood on his head, City just couldn't finish at the end, and it'll come out as, probably should have won based on expected goals. So that's just kind of how I see this match going. So I'm just laying it with City.
Yeah, I think one. I'm happy you brought up the Liverpool match. I was going to do that. I think that United will go into this game knowing that the only way they get out of this match with a result is if they shut down shop completely. And so I think you could look at like a first half under, a first half 0-0 is like plus 333 at Bet365. I think those are interesting bets. But other than that, um, I don't have much because it's one thing. I think with Liverpool, it's that strategy can work a little bit better. They want a frenetic pace to games. They want the ball to be on the carpet pinging around, and City's just not really like that. They want to be much more pragmatic with their build up and such, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to. They're like an anaconda that's just going to like suffocate the life out of you defensively.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the strategy can work
Yeah.
over a full 90 minutes, but for 45 minutes.
And
Maybe.
yeah, and even if United decide to press, like even if they decide to do what they've been doing these last 5-6 matches, it's just like press from their front line and just not move their back line up or their central midfielders up and aid in the press. Like City will exploit that like in an instant and just destroy them. So they really can't do that, even if they want to try. So I don't, like you said, like yeah, maybe they can keep them out for 45 minutes, but it seems like one-way traffic. But of course, we'll probably be sitting here, on Monday morning and being like, man, could you believe United just won 2-0 there with those two transition attacks?
All right. We'll move on from there to Saturday morning, 10 a.m. kickoff between Brentford and Chelsea. The Bees are plus 210 at home. Chelsea is plus 115, and the draw here is plus 275. Brentford coming off of a disappointing loss to
Another one.
Yeah, another one on I guess West Ham on Monday Night Football. Chelsea, meanwhile, they've just held their last. Well, they played the League Cup final, and their last Premier League action was that 1-1 draw against City. They are 2 wins, a draw, and 2 losses in their last 5, Chelsea, and those 2 losses were to Wolves and Liverpool. And I think that actually kind of tells you who Chelsea is this season. We've said it all along. They can put up a great effort against Liverpool like they did in the first match week of the season, or the 2 draws against City, but they can also lose to anybody. Brentford is, I think, still the play for me here. They've got 2 wins and 8 losses in their last 10 matches, and the numbers look ugly, but I think if you take a little bit of a deeper look, it's part of that is just because of the schedule. And I do not excuse the performance against West Ham at all. But when you go beyond that, it's the schedule's been rough, right? Like their last 5 Premier League matches. If you go to their last 6 Premier League matches, it's been Spurs, City, Wolves, Liverpool, City, West Ham. They've had a weird schedule where they've played Wolves 4 times. They played Wolves 4 times in like the span of 6 weeks too. There is some weirdness in their overall schedule, and it's you have to go back a little while. I think the 2-0 win over Wolves was a decent showing for them on the road against a team that was in good form. But this isn't the same. We say it all the time that like Brentford, they punch up better than anybody. This hasn't been really the case this season. They have a draw against Spurs, but if you look at their one kind of signature win this season, it did come against this Chelsea team back at the end of October. So I do think at home with a Chelsea team that's really not playing for much besides trying to avoid another embarrassing finish. Like I do think that Brentford has everything to play for here, and that the expected goals numbers, like the under the hood numbers, really aren't all that wide here between these 2 clubs. So I guess this is my long-winded way of saying I'm going to be on Brentford once again on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to take a break from betting Brentford. My numbers are obviously showing value on them as they do every single week. But I'm instead going to take a little both teams to score and over 2.5, which the best price you can find is -138 at Bet365. I just don't really recognize this Brentford defense right now. Last 8 matches, you mentioned the schedule has been very, very tough. Last 8 they've played, Wolves, twice in the Premier League. As you mentioned, Liverpool, City twice, and Tottenham. Over those 8 matches, they have conceded 11 big scoring chances and are allowing 2.15 expected goals per 90 minutes. Like, why we loved betting on Brentford for so long is because they're so good at preventing those big scoring chances, because they're not going to pressure you when you get the ball inside the final third. Like, they are going to stay very passive. And they've been doing a great job at staying compact in that low block and preventing those high-quality chances. Well, now they're not doing that. They're making, honestly, what it is, they're just making uncharacteristic, dumb mistakes that we have never seen from Brentford. So who knows if those continue? Mark Flecken has been getting better as of late, but he's still bad. Like, it's, he went from like a -7 post-shot XG to like a -6.5. So, I mean, a little bit of improvement, but the Brentford offense has been really good. Through this difficult stretch of 8 matches, they're still averaging over 1.5 expected goals per 90 minutes. And Ivan Toney being back in the lineup, who I will be betting once again for anytime goal scorer, has been a breath of fresh air for Brentford, especially going forward in attack, because he's honestly the perfect striker for their system, because he's very good at hold-up play. He's very good at running in behind. He's an aerial threat. He's averaging 3.3 shots per 90, so he's getting great production for them. And if you look at this match and you look at what Chelsea struggles with, they're actually a pretty good team out of possession. They're very flawed in possession, because in a match like this, where Brentford's going to sit in a low defensive block, Chelsea is going to be tempted, and they're going to do it. They're going to push Gallagher, and they're going to push Enzo Fernandez high up the pitch to try and overload the last line of defense, to try and get the ball in the middle somewhere between this Brentford defensive block. Well, we just watched a team that plays very, very similarly to Brentford torch Chelsea repeatedly in transition. That was Wolves. They scored 4 goals on the road at Stamford Bridge. Brentford's going to set up in the exact same defensive block that Wolves did. They're going to sit just as deep as Wolves did, and they're going to attack from deep, just like Wolves did. So, given how good Brentford has been in transition, they can definitely put the ball in the back of the net and maybe even score twice here against Chelsea, who's bad in transition defense because they leave Moises Caicedo isolated, and he hasn't been at the form that he was at Brighton. So, both teams to score and over 2.5, again, is -138. Really, honestly, just a bet against both defenses, who are very, very flawed right now in terms of Brentford making mistakes and Chelsea defending in transition. So that's where I'm going with this one.
All right. On to Everton.
Yes.
Huge news.
Yeah, let's talk relegation.
All right. How about we do this? We'll couple together Everton and West Ham Toffees plus 105 at home. West Ham plus 250, and the draw is 260 in this one. And we'll also do Luton Town and Villa at the same time. Luton Town plus 320 at home. Villa -134 on the road, and the draw is plus 320 for that one. And we can talk relegation around this too. Everton handed back 4 points. Now, there is a caveat here. There is another inquest open to Everton. And I think a lot of folks, including myself, like Everton fans, were fatalistic by nature and for good reason. And I think a lot of people were just skeptical that they handed those 4 points back because the other deduction was going to come and it'll be like, another 6 or something. We will see, though. That said, obviously that it's been a fascinating relegation market to bet, because a lot of it is just, do you believe that Everton was going to win their case, their appeal? It had nothing to do.
I'm saying, Michael, I'm going to tell everybody this right now, and I messaged this to somebody. But betting on these court cases has been one of the most electric things to bet on this entire Premier League season. And I was doing some reading. So essentially, what happened is that Everton was handed a 10-point deduction because there was, obviously they broke financial fair play rules. But there was also this extra charge of they didn't act in good faith. Like, they tried to cover it up. Through the appeals process, Everton proved that they did act in good faith. So they got 4 points back for that. And now what we have is a benchmark, which is 6 points, right? So if Nottingham Forest and Everton come through the second, set of charges or whatever it is, and they at least act in good faith, 6 points is that benchmark. And it looks like we're not going to go above that. What's hilarious about this whole situation, Michael, is the court cases for both are going to be at the beginning of April. And I was doing some reading about Nottingham Forest today. Their lawyer has been described as the Lionel Messi of sports law, which is very, 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 very funny title to have. But in any case, there is a chance that Nottingham Forest won't be handed a full 6 points. Same thing with Everton. And honestly, if you look at the table right now, even if Everton are handed a 6 point deduction, who's to say they can't overcome 1 point against Luton Town, given how bad they've been? But what's even more funny about this is that if both teams appeal the April sentence, the appeal needs to be done by May 24th, which is, I believe, 3 or 4 days after the season is over. Yes. So we might not know what team is being relegated until these court cases are finalized. And I think the Premier League is kind of hoping that Everton and Nottingham Forest kind of pull away from the pack here.
Right, so exactly.
Hand them 6 points and say, all right, here you go, whatever. Let's move on. It's very, very funny they're doing this, and they haven't decided 115 charges for City yet, but that's a conversation for another day. But if you look at the relegation odds right now, Luton Town is minus 175 at Bet365 to be relegated. Opta, who does obviously all the good projections and everything like that, they have Luton Town at about minus 230-ish, minus 235 to be relegated, barring any, obviously, additional points deductions of what we have right now. So what you have to tell yourself is okay, is now the time to buy Luton Town to be relegated? Because we obviously won't know what these point deductions are. Given the way the Luton Town's playing and given the schedule that they have coming up, I believe now is absolutely the time to buy it, because we'll just talk about Nottingham Forest here against Liverpool. Nottingham Forest has been playing a lot better under Nuno. They actually have a positive expected goal differential in his 9 matches in charge, and that's even coupling it with the fact that there was a 3 or 4 match stretch where their entire back line was away at AFCON. So now they have their entire back line back. They look great in that match against West Ham. Obviously lost to Aston Villa over the weekend, conceded close to 4 expected goals, but that's a tough scenario there on the road against a top 4, top 5 team. They're going to get Liverpool here, and I think this is a good situation for them. Liverpool's obviously playing in the FA Cup on Wednesday. They're probably going to have to play the Academy, because I don't know what Liverpool is going to do, Michael, because if, right now they obviously have catastrophic injuries all over the pitch. And, Salah and Nunez might be back for this match, and that's obviously a big boost to Liverpool. But it doesn't look like Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones is obviously still out, or Wataru Endo are going to play. So, and even Gravenberch is out now for an extended period of time. So what ball stopper does Liverpool have in the middle of their pitch? So what that leads me to believe is that Liverpool is going to have to go back to what we saw at the beginning of the season when they had to play very, very passive, where they weren't that good defensively because they couldn't enact their devastating counter press that has gotten them all these wins recently because of the induction of Endo and Gravenberch into the squad, because they actually have ball stopping. So I don't know what Liverpool is going to do, especially in this match. I mean, this price is high on Liverpool, quite frankly. I like Nottingham Forest +1 here at home, where they've played better, where they can actually hit Liverpool in transition, have pace to get in behind. Even the last match, Liverpool got a couple of big chances. One was off just a horrible mistake by Matt Turner. So we'll see. But Nottingham Forest have been playing a lot better. Both them and Everton are significantly better right now in terms of underlying metrics than Luton Town. And Luton Town's going for it, and I love them to death. But they're bad. Now their expected goal differential is rivaling that of Burnley and Sheffield United. So I think now's the time to buy Luton Town to be relegated at -175. I think by the time these get handed out in April, we could see them be 8-9 points adrift from Forest and Everton.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of just bring these matches together. It's I think Everton's a good bet at +105 at home.
I do too. Yep.
I think we've talked about West Ham being a paper tiger all season. We've talked about Everton kind of being the opposite of that, a team that is much better than its record and even goal differential would tell you. Their actual points they should have 30, 31 points.
Yep.
They have 25 by the real table. Their expected points is even higher than that. Like, this is a team that should be sitting like between 8th and 12th in the table. And West Ham should be sitting like 14th, between like 14th and 16th in the table if you look at like the numbers under the hood. And that's why I think, even as a pretty short favorite here at home on the three-way line, plus 105, Everton's worth a bet. And I also like Forest, like you said. Like, this Liverpool, this is not a full strength Liverpool team at all. Like, this is going to be a very different looking team against a Forest team that I think is a bye team right now under Nuno. I think they've kind of got their act together more than anything, which is super important when you're in a relegation battle. So I'll probably be on Forest at on the money line at 5-1 for that one. Meanwhile, yeah, I've got no interest in Luton against Villa. So this, yeah, is it likely the Forest wins this weekend? No, but I do think that you're going to see Everton pick up points here. You're going to see Forest, even if it's not this weekend, start to pick up points, and the gap's just going to become wider and wider and wider for Luton Town. And I don't think we're even going to have much of a relegation battle by the time March comes to close, right? So I agree with your notion there. I agree with your thought process. I'm playing Forest, and I know that you're looking at Villa and the over in that one. So any thoughts on those three matches that you didn't get to before we move on?
Yeah, I do like the over in Luton Aston Villa. Probably one of my favorite plays of the entire season, quite frankly. So Luton Town have established, and we've talked about this quite a bit, that playing a passive zonal marking low block just doesn't work. And it hadn't worked for a long time. So what Rob Edwards has done is he said, we're going to man mark all over the pitch. We're going to try to press high. We're going to try to disrupt build up. And we're just, like, we have physical enough players. Like, we can make it difficult on a lot of teams. They tried that against Manchester City in the FA Cup. And Holland just kept running in behind over and over and over again and ended up scoring 5 goals in less than an hour. I know Aston Villa has gone through a lot of injuries, but a lot of those injuries are in their defense. I don't understand how their offense is not going to be able to do the exact same thing here. Ollie Watkins, anytime goal scorer, is probably going to be a very live bet here because he's so good at just making those runs right off the back line. Aston Villa, they obviously have lost basically their best ball stoppers. Konsa's out, Kamara's out, Diego Carlos is out. What that is a big problem with is not only defending in transition, which is what Luton Town is going to do, but also defending on set pieces. Aston Villa is the worst team at defending set pieces in the Premier League. And those three guys are their biggest physical presences that can actually aid in helping them defend them. They conceded one against Nottingham Forest over the weekend, and who's to say they're not going to concede maybe one or two here against Luton Town. So I projected 4.2 goals for this match, and I really think we need to be starting setting these Luton Town overs at 3.5, not 3. And I believe as we go throughout the season, they will start at 3.5, and we'll get closer to maybe, for the first time, at least I've seen in the Premier League, a total set at 4, which would be very funny to watch. But I think there is a chance that we could get there at some point because, Luton Town's going for it. They've conceded the most expected goals in the Premier League since the beginning of November by a very large margin, and they're going to continue to because they have identified this is their best chance to stay in the Premier League. It's just to go for it. So,
all right. So the over in Luton Town and Villa, you like Forest to cover. I like them on the money line against Liverpool. We both like Everton against West Ham to round up that section. Fulham and Brighton, neither one of us have much here. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Fulham plus 175, Brighton plus 145, draw plus 260.
The injury
Anything
situation
interesting
for
here?
Brighton
Should we just move on?
It's not good. Matoma's now going to be out for the season, which is obviously a huge loss for them, along with a bunch of other attackers that are out right now for Brighton. So, if Brighton was fully healthy, there's a chance I could say, like, maybe, my numbers, barring any injuries, are projecting a little bit of value here on Brighton. But Fulham's been playing a lot better. Like, credit to Fulham. We've crapped on them a lot. They got the win against Manchester United. They've been decent defending in a low block. Pauline will be back. So this is pretty much an easy pass for me. I'm not really that keen to bet Brighton anymore at their current state. I honestly think they're just kind of like the 8th or ninth best team in the Premier League. And that's just kind of where they're sitting instead of being like, as we saw last year, given how good they were like the 4th or 5th. So it's just kind of hard to bet Brighton these days, I guess.
All right, Newcastle and Wolverhampton up next. Newcastle odds on -110. Wolves traveling +260. A draw is +300. I was hoping that we'd get a better number here on Wolverhampton. It didn't come, so I'm happy to pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually do like the over here. I think this match kind of sets up to be, what Newcastle wants now is to play very, very aggressively. And, the match against Arsenal is not indicative of what was going to happen here. They obviously couldn't string 2 passes together or even get the ball out of their own final third. Wolves is not going to do that to them. They're going to sit much more passive in their defensive block. And, if you look at, since not Newcastle switched to this more aggressive pressing style where they're pushing their back line up and going man marking kind of everywhere against Aston Villa, and they got the win there. But since that point, they have played similar transition teams in Luton, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth, and all of those teams have just caused problems getting in behind their back line because of how slow Newcastle's back line is. So for Wolves, who's a outstanding transition team, a team that can cause so many problems, I think they are actually very live here. Wolves also, which is a staple under Gary O'Neill, are a very, very good set piece team, even if it hasn't shown up in the data yet this season. Newcastle has really been struggling to defend those 18th and XG per set piece. So Wolves is definitely live. But I went back and watched the previous match between these two, and I was shocked. Newcastle was getting the ball in the middle of the pitch just over and over and over again against Wolves' defensive block, which is really concerning here. And if you look through, Wolves is a very puzzling team because we love Gary O'Neill, and they've pulled off all these upsets. But if you look at their expected goal differential, it's like the 5th worst in the Premier League. So I don't really know what's going on. Like their defensive numbers still aren't that great. So, we'll see what happens. But I think the over is definitely live here in a match that is set up to be very, very back and forth, basketball type match. So projected 3.8 goals. So I do like over 3 goals to -110.
Spurs and Palace. This one I do like. I like Crystal Palace here. They're +550 on the road. Spurs are laying a big number here, -200. The draw is +333. So I'm happy to take a shot here on Palace. Just not even just in this match, just generally, because I think we all know that the talent level on this team was much greater than the results that Roy Hodgson was getting from them this season. That the style of soccer they were playing was a lot more pragmatic than I think people wanted to see when you have the talent that Palace has in its ranks, especially with a couple players with the ball at their feet. That showed over the weekend with a 3-0 win, a dominant win over Burnley. And it was one match, and it was against Burnley. But I do think that this Palace team is going to be a bet on for the rest of the season. They should be able to kind of click into gear here. I think that it's going to turn into one of those situations where when we're doing like a season preview for next year, we're like, ooh, watch out for this Palace team. If they keep things together, which is, of course, unlikely with the way teams will be circling around like as they and Elise. But I'm happy to bet them here. I think that even though the results don't show it for Spurs in the bigger sample of the whole season, they are vulnerable, I think, to losing to lesser opposition. They just did it to Wolves. They had the draw against Everton. They've had some nail biters in not just in the Premier League, but cup matches against like Burnley. They lost to a West Ham team we don't really find all that inspiring. It's actually a pair of 2-1 losses to Wolves on the season. So a Spurs team, I think, that can be had. They're always a couple mistakes away from a game just getting out of hand, and they're happy to play that style. They want to put the pedal to the metal, play some high risk, high reward stuff, and I think that they can be caught here. So with Palace, the rest advantage, I know Spurs because they were off last weekend. You can look into that, but I think that most signs here point to Palace being a live underdog against Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are. I mean, Spurs is obviously, they're always ripe for an upset like this. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Glasner does. He went to a 3-4-3. as opposed to the usual, either 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2 that Roy Hodgson was playing. Obviously, got a red card early against Burnley, which does make a difference. But they were dominating the match up to that red card. I mean, they were out shooting there. They had 4 shots to 0. Like Burnley wasn't really getting inside their final third. So a good performance at home against Crystal Palace. It'll be interesting. Eze's coming back here. Not this, I believe, at the next match. And same thing with Mark Gahey. So, and encouraging news is that Czech Decore signed a long-term contract today. So there could be, like you just said, going into next year, Palace might be an interesting buy team. Even if Elise leaves, like they might find somebody else. Maybe Matthias Franca could be an encouraging player going forward. So, especially in Glasner's system, I think a 3-4-3 suits this Crystal Palace team a lot better than 4-4-2 low block. So definitely ripe to pick off Spurs here.
Okay, 2 more to get to before we jaunt through Europe. Burnley plus 280 against Bournemouth. The Cherries are a minus 106 road favorite, and the draw is plus 260. This one is a pretty easy pass for me. I've got
so uninteresting.
Yeah, I've got nothing really to go here, so we can just.
Yeah, this is an easy pass. Burnley is just such an uninteresting team to me. They're just bad, and they're just showing no life of actually getting better. Yep. So, I don't know if I've bet a Burnley match in a while, and I don't think I will going forward. So, easy pass for me.
And we'll wrap up with Sheffield United as a 16-1 home underdog against your Arsenal. The Gunners minus 550 on the road. 6-1. It's a Monday night football match, 3 p.m. standalone, nothing going on. So I probably have a little bit of sprinkle on like the Sheffield United money line. We'll see how high it gets, and I'll probably maybe even throw a little flutter on the reverse puck line, the reverse run line. Sheffield United minus 1.5, but that is not something I would recommend unless you are totally okay with losing that and losing it quickly and losing it drastically. So outside of that, anything here?
No, this is an easy pass. I like to, for these matches, I like to see what do I have Sheffield United at? Well, I have the projected, I think, at around 14.5 to 1. So really just an easy pass for me. I'm not laying 2 goals with Arsenal on the road. I don't really care how bad Sheffield United has been. Even both teams to score no has been priced out of range. Arsenal to win nil has been priced out as well. Interesting that Sheffield United could be without Ben Diaz and Chris Archer for this match. So that is not encouraging. If you want to actually try to get Arsenal in transition. So, I know it's Monday Night Football, but this is a very uninteresting match, and just pray to God Arsenal doesn't trip here.
Okay, that wraps up the Premier League. Onto Europe. This is all you. We'll start with the Bundesliga here. A opportunity for you to bet Stuttgart.
Yes. I've said it before, but Stuttgart are legitimately the 3rd best team in the Bundesliga right now, putting up rivaling underlying numbers that of Leverkusen right now. It's because they're such a difficult team to prepare for. They're really, really good in possession. They want to play through balls through the middle of the pitch. They want to dominate it there. Zone 14, which is the zone right in front, right outside the 18-yard box in the center of the pitch where the little half circle is. That is like the most key area in a football match, is like who can dominate that area. Stuttgart has completed the 3rd most passes in that little area behind only Leverkusen and Bayern Munich, just showing how good they are at playing through the middle. But they've also completed the 2nd most crosses of anybody into the penalty area in the Bundesliga. So it just shows how difficult they are to prepare for. Also, they have 2 unbelievable strikers. And Michael, I want you to jot this name down for Golden Boot at the Euros. Dennis Undav, who's playing for Stuttgart right now on loan from Brighton. Germany, they've had a striker problem forever. Basically since Miroslav Klose retired, they haven't been able to find a striker. This guy, Michael, he's in incredible form right now. 0.85 XG per 90, 14 goals already on the season. him and Girassi haven't really played alongside each other very much. They've played 5 matches together, and up top, both started. In those 5 matches, 2 of them came against Bayern and Leverkusen. In those 2 matches, they actually created 3 expected goals, but the other 3 matches came against teams in the bottom half of the table with those 2 up top. They created 7.6 expected goals. They are an absolutely lethal threat. And they're taking on a Wolfsburg team that, quite frankly, has stunk against good teams. Against 6 matches against the top 5 in the Bundesliga, they have a minus 5.3 expected goal differential. And in their previous match against Stuttgart, they conceded 2.7 expected goals. But Dennis Undav, Michael, he'll probably be 200, 250 to 1 will be my guess for Golden Boot, somewhere in that range. He might not even start Germany's first match up top. But if they have striker problems and they struggle, and they have this guy waiting on the bench who is just in incredible form for Stuttgart, he could come in match number 2, put a ball in the back of the net, and guess what? He's up top for the rest of the Euros. So just mark that down. Just write that name down if you're listening to this. He might not even make the team, quite frankly. He got a call up. He's going to get a call up for these next couple friendlies for Germany. But if he makes the squad, Michael, he's really their only striker that Germany has.
All right.
So at least a true striker. So if you want a long shot, Dennis Undav, Golden Boot at the Euros.
Perfect.
And I'll move on here to Italy. Torino, draw no bet minus 140 against Fiorentina. I mean, this is pretty simple. Another fate of Fiorentina. Torino is a very difficult team to play. Very, very good defensive team. They man mark all over the pitch. They like to sit in a mid block. Basically, a very mirror image of a good. You know what they are, Michael? They're a mirror image of Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds combined with Sean Dyche's Everton, where they are so good once you cross the halfway point in terms of man mark pressing and how intense they are. It's so difficult to play through them. So in a league where, like Italy, where nobody presses anymore, Fiorentina is number 1 in field tilt. They're number 1 in all these build-up categories. The last time they played Torino, they struggled so badly to play through them. 14 penalty box touches, only half an expected goal created. So I think Torino gives them a lot of problems here, especially at home. They're just, quite frankly, a better team based on underlying metrics. So Torino, draw no bet minus 140. Moving on to Spain. Michael, there's actually been a team in Spain that's been more unlucky than Celta Vigo. And they're playing them on Friday. It's Almeria, who's at the bottom of the table. They haven't won a match yet this season. 0 26, having 9 draws. Just drew Atletico Madrid over the weekend. But if you remove penalties, they have a minus 23 actual goal differential. Their non-penalty expected goal differential is minus 4. Their expected points is about 25, and they have 9 on the season. Like, they've only been awarded 1 penalty, and they've conceded 9. It's just been a categoric underperformance of epic proportions. And I know that Celta Vigo has conceded so many goals in stoppage time. Even in their last match against Cadiz, they were winning and they conceded in the 100th minute this time. I think that might be the latest that they've had this season. But I do believe Celta Vigo is a little overvalued here. I mean, you're looking at them at minus 130, minus 135 here at home against a team that really doesn't have that much worse of underlying metrics. And Almeria is actually a pretty good offense, top 7 in expected goals. So Almeria plus a half. About plus 110 against Cadiz, against Celta Vigo, only projected them at plus 116. And then finally in France, Marseille, minus 120 on the road against Clermont Foot. Marseille's in a weird position right now. They are on their 3rd manager of the season, Jean-Louis Gasset, who got fired from the Ivory Coast in the middle of the group stage, now gets the job here at Marseille after Gennaro Gattuso got fired. And they've had a little bit of new manager bounce. It's going from that really strict teacher to some older substitute teacher who's just, kind of there because he's bored, because Gasset is 70 years old. And they've scored, 7 goals in their last 2 matches with him in charge. Little breath of fresh air. But Marseille, the underperformance for them has been actually quite remarkable. This is kind of funny, Michael. So Marseille has 9 draws on the season. In those 9 draws, they have won the expected goals battle in every single match and have a plus 8.2 expected goal differential overall in 9 draws. That's crazy. That's almost unheard of. They're taking on Clermont Foot, who is the worst team in France right now, worst expected goal differential, a team that's most likely to be relegated. And before we get out of this Europe section, I have a future for everybody. Le Havre to be relegated at 8-1, third worst expected goal differential in Ligue 1 right now, but are being priced above teams like Montpellier and Lorient, who have better underlying metrics than them. They're on a bad run of form. They finish off the season playing PSG, Nice, and Marseille. So if we even get to a point, now obviously France has gone to 18 teams, and the third spot is a relegation playoff spot. But given their bad underlying metrics, I think there's a very real shot that they could be in that third spot, and you get an 8-1 shot on whoever's coming up from the second division to play them. So a little French future for everybody for the weekend. Le Havre, because they play Brest this weekend on the road, so they're most likely going to lose there. So their odds are probably going to plummet after that. So Le Havre to be relegated 8-1 as well, along with Marseille -120.
Okay. Thank you for that tour de force through Europe. On to our underdogs for today. I'll start. I like Palace at plus 550 against Spurs. Like I said, I think that this Palace team is under Glasner is going to be a bye as they start to play a little bit more on the front foot, catch teams. And I think that's actually pretty conducive to catching a team like Spurs, who want to play a little bit with more risk in their feet. So Palace to pick them off on the road, plus 550. I think that Tottenham, the time for Tottenham to finally lose as a big favorite has come. So I'll take the Eagles. Oliver Glasner's Eagles here. What do you got?
Mm-hmm. I got Mallorca on the island against Girona, plus 220. So obviously we've known for many years that Mallorca their performances have been much better on the island than they have been on the road. They just had a great performance. They're going to the Copa del Rey finals after beating Real Sociedad over 2 legs. So they played Girona in the Copa del Rey finals at home, and they pumped 3 goals past them in rapid succession. They're a team that's really, really good in transition, which is where Girona struggles. And it's, again, Girona really wasn't that impressive for a large stretch against Vallecano on Monday. Then they score a goal. They get a red card. They score 2 goals in stoppage time. And it's like, oh my gosh, 3-0 win. Like, great performance from Girona. When it's like, yeah, they were really bad for like the first 50 minutes. And then suddenly, they turned things around. But I predicted this match pretty close to a pick'em. So Mallorca on the island, plus 220, I think is a fantastic price.
Okay. On to best bets. I like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go right back to Everton here as a money line favorite. They're plus 105 at home against West Ham. I think if you look at these two teams, Everton is fully deserving of their favoritism on the 3-way line here. They're a better team than West Ham. The underlying metrics look good. It's just West Ham has just been catching a ton of breaks. They're winning games in the big moments. Full credit to them for getting the results, but this Everton team hasn't won in almost 2.5 months now, and I think that slide ends here at Goodison Park. Should be a buoyant crowd after the points deduction was slashed a bit. So I'll take Everton plus 105 against West Ham.
Luton Town, Aston Villa, over 3 goals at -120. Luton Town have established that their only method of actually staying in the Premier League is going to have to be that they're going to have to play very aggressive. So you saw against Manchester City in the FA Cup on Tuesday that they man-marked Manchester City all over the pitch. And what it resulted in is Erling Haaland getting in behind time and time again on their way to scoring 6 goals. They're going to play the exact same way against Aston Villa because they have established that they're not good enough in a low defensive block where they try to zonal mark. Ollie Watkins is so good at running in behind defenders and is going to cause a lot of problems for Luton Town. The flip side of it, though, is that Aston Villa has kind of struggled in build-up from time to time, so Luton Town is going to press them high. They could nick a couple high turnovers off them. And Aston Villa is also the worst team at defending set pieces. They're obviously without all of their good ball stoppers right now, with Kamara being out of the season, Diego Carlos also being out along with Konsa. What those 3 guys also are their best defenders on set pieces. So with Luton Town, which is a main off of corners, which is a main method of how they've actually scored a lot of their goals, they're going to have a big advantage there. So there's definitely a path for Luton Town to get Aston Villa in transition without all those ball stoppers, to get on set pieces. So this match, for me, has the makings of end-to-end basketball style match, which is what Luton Town wants right now. So I projected 4.2 goals. I love over 3 goals at -120. It's probably one of my favorite plays of the entire Premier League season to date.
There we go. All right. I should have noted that underdog parlay pays out 20-1 for the 2 legs. So good luck if you place that. Well, we will be back next week. Until then, best of luck with all your bets. Thank you for listening to Wondergoal. Thank you for rating, reviewing, and subscribing. If you already have, please do if you haven't. Thank you to our producer, Noah, for the hard work on the back end. And we will see you in a few days.